Most of our lessons have been pretty short. This one's going to be a little bit longer, so I'm going to ask you a favor. Bear with any noise that may come up in this video. We're shooting outdoors, so we have to deal with, well, what we're shooting in. So you might see some edits, might see some noise, but let's get through it. So what we're talking about here is actually allowing yourself to symbolically see your actions make a difference. Before we talked knowledge, right? What actions led to our circumstances? Now we're going to show ourselves that our physical actions have an impact on our next day. You'll notice that in this chapter we talk about being stuck in yesterday and the ruts that we're in and the kind of ways that happens. Now we have to start breaking that pattern. To break that pattern, we have to show ourselves that we can set ourselves up. Now, this exercise really has kind of two major things that we're trying to accomplish here. Number one, we're trying to make our next day different and better. So when you're planning your next day, I'm not going to give any examples in this section because I need you to use your imagination to come up with things. What can I do today, tonight, that I can see that affects tomorrow? And I'm not going to tell you what not to do and what to do. We're going to do that next chapter. I want you to sit down before you move on and do this exercise of going through the process of picking actions that affect tomorrow. You get to choose what tomorrow looks like. What is something you can do now that you will physically see, feel, or remember tomorrow? So it can't just be, I'm going to go and give my wife a hug tonight. I know I told you I wouldn't tell you not to do something, but because you're not going to physically see that tomorrow. Is it a good thing to do? Yes. But you need to be able to see the results of your actions. So this is where you use your imagination. The reason we do this is because it gets your mind thinking of the impact of your actions. How do I physically affect the next day? We spend more time planning for things in our life, but we never plan the next day. We never plan the next morning. And we're going to go into some big details here in the next chapter, but I really want to emphasize that our actions have lasting weight. We just don't ever see it. The things that we did last year, the year before that, last month, all of those things have weight that led us today. So when we started this, we were looking at how our actions led to our circumstances, but there's usually not a defining moment. It's usually a series of actions and habits that actually lead to a current day circumstance. I've been going to the same job for the last 5 years and I hate it, but I haven't looked for another job. I haven't got myself promoted. I haven't applied myself enough. I don't have the skills. There's a whole series of things that we did not do that led us there. Because we were doing the same thing every single day, repeating the same day. If you get up and you go to work and that's what yesterday looks like, that's what the rest of your life is going to look like. So we have to show ourselves, because human beings need one of two things. Number one, we need a complete and full understanding of how something works that fits within our belief system. Because if we take something in and it doesn't fit with our belief system, we'll push it away. Especially in today's world, the echo chamber of the things that we believe reverberates in our own mind. So we have to break that, and we're going to do that by symbolically showing ourselves that if I make an action today, it affects tomorrow. The reason my life is where it's at today is because of my given circumstance when I was born and all of the decisions that I've made up to this point. And while you can say, well, I was really not making conscious decisions when I was a kid, you are right, but you still made them. I was brought home by the police more than once. I was pulled over for shooting my paintball gun at a rival school's mascot. That was a thing that I did. And if you don't think that those actions had consequences, then you're absolutely wrong. They did have consequences, and they were decisions that I decided to make. So you have to remember, even though you're not thinking about the fact that you're making decisions, you're still making decisions, and they're still impacting your life, and they're still leading you to a path. I was lucky that my mom gave me Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Art Berg, Joe Girard, Tom Hopkins, and I can go on and on about the people that my mom gave me to read. It's how I made an allowance. But realistically speaking, this is in the 80s and I had severe ADHD. I didn't even know that until 2 years ago. My mom was doing the best she could to try to get me not to end up in prison because I was a wild kid. Now, she'll probably say that I was much better than I'm leading on, but she really didn't know what to do with me. In fact, my stepfather never actually believed in spanking, but then he met me and said, maybe there's an exception. So I want you to keep in mind that it's still my decisions. Now, when my mom gave me those books, I did read them. I made the decision to consume them. And then I continued to consume more and more self-education and self-development for my entire life, which led me to finally hitting the ability to be able to sell my house, move into a fifth wheel, and travel across the United States. But I had to make certain decisions to get there, and I'll never change those for the world. And every step along the way, I encountered huge obstacles, and they were decisions that I made that led me to face those obstacles that, in hindsight, I could have avoided. But I won't trade it for the circumstances and for the information and for the knowledge that those circumstances gave me, because I wouldn't be the person today if it wasn't for my actions. Now, I told you this is going to be a little bit longer because I really want to hone in on the fact that your actions impact tomorrow. So at the end of this exercise, what are 1 to 3 actions that you can do that are going to make tomorrow different and not today? We'll see you at the end of the next chapter.